A wise man once remarked, "Be first create habits, then about habits makes us. Be build habits, then make us." To make matters even more inhumane, those who are very brilliant but have poor habits end up having their lives ruined by their own shortcomings. When it comes to trading as well as other aspects of life, it is crucial to know what habits great leaders that have given them an advantage over the rest of the day, even if they aren't necessarily the brightest individuals. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe to the channel because this channel is dedicated to traders and investors, and I'll explain complex market concepts in an easy to understand manner so that even an absolute beginner can grasp them. Hey, let's talk consistently profitable trader. Waiting for a transaction to come to you rather than letting up at them is a key characteristic of successful traders. Does the stock market function as a means of moving money from the impatient to the patient, those who wait for opportunities to come to them? Debates in Seoul go on for hours and hours. Sitting next to an expert data may be tedious 90% of the time since they simply sit and observe while I was an online buddy. But when the idea occasion arises, chart defies their weapon. This New York-based operating fund, which I had previously visited, was nothing like what I had expected. I was looking for a high-pressure situation like what we see in movies with plenty of displays glowing, phones ringing, and people frantically trying to purchase and sell things. Rather than this, what I saw was something like a college cafeteria, complete with people working out or playing table tennis while others listened to music or took their medications. This left me perplexed. But a senior did explain that they don't monitor everyone all day long because it leads to more stress and temptation to return to their old habits. It is much simpler to stay focused on this cycle of controlled growth if the data in this spreadsheet is kept clean all day long. And he provided me with some excellent advice in the form of a bolt. She is the market lagged, the market to come to you. It was Stephen Covey who popularized the idea of circle of worry and circle of control for any symptoms in his well-known book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. It is better to worry about getting an umbrella because that is something I can control. By focusing on the things within your control, you can lead a more effective and productive life. For example, if I am worried that it will rain, I can do something about it. But worrying about the rain itself is not something I can do. By concentrating on the factors that they can actually control, such as vendors' display on the timing of when to enter and when to exit a trade, they ensure that the entity responsible for carrying out their trades does so as efficiently as possible and thus increases its chances of success. Habit number 3 of successful traders: blindfolded. Choosing whether or not to join a tech review is a decision you'll have to make on a daily basis. It's unfortunate that amateur traders and quickly checking their vehicles had to leave without any plan for how to get out of that, and the ball ended up in Chakravya, where it's impossible to get out because they are emotionally invested in the losses they suffered. Consequently, it's a case of coming back to the brink that ends up being emotionally exhausting. Chakrava is prone to making mistakes in his trading, seeing Davis lose 10 Lahore rupees, 50 rupees in a single day in a single state because they knew how to get into the game but didn't know the way out is really a tragic example of our breeding. Getting your skin and with just one bad date, and that is exactly the reason by professional activists in the with the importance of excess didn't nor did exist even before its end, but into the great vote in the cases of profits and losses. For skilled traders, it's not acceptable to allow one back day to risk the whole day's trading. So, They're always keeping track of their trades in order to know how to get out of trouble if they lose money. If you don't analyze your life, you won't be able to live it. If you don't examine your breed, you won't have any chance of becoming a majority. To move on, just as students will do after their final exams, you must forget about the past. These traders, on the other hand, prefer not to recall the events of the previous day, especially those in which they lost, for the simple reason that it triggers unpleasant memories. I, on the other hand, prefer to recall the losses. They do obtain valuable information from this mountain study, which helps them make long-term investment decisions. I feel that dating analytics is one of the most underappreciated parts of dating, and I would never argue with the idea that a well-run day is organized chaos. Dating is always a mess, from the professional argument to the inspection of the brain, but it has to provide doublance, uneasiness, and doubt on a continuous basis. In order to solve this problem, amateur video makers simply use their own feelings of grandeur and bravery to create their videos. However, the problem with this approach is that North's video have never been commercially successful because they were based on their own emotions, and emotions have no place in this market. It is not necessary to build a system of rules and processes for every aspect of operating, and double for everything that they have rules for when they arrived, but they will not take a plate. They know how to select stocks, bake, and manage, but their imagination ought to be able to generate feelings now that they can use to analyze those players. Even though they're in the same frame, all of these rules are number 6, successfully worded to approach every game with a clear head, so your question is, well, 50-50. Right, because the hundreds of times you flip a coin, and every time it happens to be heads, what do you think is the probability of getting a tails again? Well, likewise, Gonzalez has no statistical relationship with any previous cornos, including those that were the 90th and 90 on the previous cornos. Just as a result of every new plate have no statistical relationship with any prior state. It doesn't matter how previous days stand out to be next dates that are the end of the bad new episode altogether. But that is not how amateur traders oppose their dates. So, if they had a few successful days, the caddy transmitted sentiments from the previous page to the following 3, and if they had a few losing days in a row, the conference starts to shake the stock and causes it to become desperate, resulting in psychological blunders but professional status. Since they'd improve themselves, it's critical to break the back leg so that everyone can start fresh without the emotional baggage of past dates. If there's any connection between the last date and this point, it's that they better themselves. Effective data is continually adapting and learning new ways of doing things. Education is expensive, but Donovan argued that the most ignorance can be especially expensive because there is money on that line at every day, though amateurs does get comfortable. When I inquired as to why he was learning algo trading, he said, "Bank the times have changed today. I'm not competing with other creative people." Such a top level of information and such a quick service, I simply had a great time with him. The fact that he's able to learn a new technology at this stage in his life means that I shouldn't be surprised if he does. I hope that you learned something new today. Peace.